The streak is over. Ohio State snaps it over their knee in Ann Arbor. Final score, Buckeyes 27, Michigan 9. That is the Ohio State that I think all of us have expected to see over the course of the last couple of years in this spot. That is a version of Michigan now where you look down the barrel of the offseason and say, okay, we got some work to do here. We'll unpack both sides of this thing right now. Before we do that, make sure you are subscribed. If you're a Buckeye fan, we've been saying it now since the midway point of the season. We think you're probably going to win the national championship. We're going to address that here going forward, so make sure you're subscribed. If you're a Michigan fan, my feeling is you're probably going to hit the portal here pretty hard for some wide receivers. We will keep a pulse on that. So both sides of this rivalry, make sure you are subscribed right here to the On Three YouTube channel. I want to start with Ohio State because going into this week, what we kept talking about was, hey, Ohio State's the more talented team, but they were the more talented team a season ago, and it didn't freaking matter. So where do you go with that? The Ohio State personality was exactly what you would hope it would be in the spot. Last year, I said this before, it felt very pre-workout-ish, very caffeinated, very on tilt, very we hate Michigan, grit our teeth, find a way, we hate them so much, we're going to beat them now, they're at our place, we got Will Howard, we got Caleb Downs, we got all these pieces, Quinshon Judkins, and it felt so tight and so angsty, felt so bent on beating Michigan. Ohio State wasn't worried nearly enough about Ohio State. This kind of Ohio State personality, though, with the same amount of intense, same amount of focused, but far more calculated, far more composed. It was pre-workout a year ago. It was more Navy SEAL this year. We know the job. We know our business. We know we are the more talented team. We're going to stick to our game plan. Ohio State in this spot was worried about Ohio State. Whereas the last 4 years, give or take, it's felt like to me Ohio State is worried about Michigan. And that's not saying that you can't hate your rival with every fiber of your being, but Ryan Day said something in his post-game press conference. We wanted to play for the love of our brother, not the hatred of our opponent. Now, that probably sounds good in a sonnet. Might be straight out of William Shakespeare. I don't know. But the point being, I think that mentality and that focus, that to me showed up in a big way for Ohio State. In addition to that, it felt like Ohio State was never this heavy team or this tight team or like they were living with the weight of the last 4 years. And some of that is a resetting job by Ryan Day and the staff. Some of that is just a lot of these individuals are new to this rivalry for Ohio State. Like, you can't fear what you don't know. Like Julian Sayin was on the sideline last year when they lost to Michigan. He wasn't the starting quarterback. Like Matt Patricia wasn't calling the defense last year when they lost to Michigan. 8 new starters on the defensive side of the ball. Like, you're not worried about falling off your bike as a kid because you've never fallen off your bike before. You only get nervous about falling off your bike when you skin your knee up going around the corner, going down to the neighborhood pool. Like that's when you get nervous and you get angsty. This team had never fallen off their bike before for a lot of these guys, to keep with this metaphor. And so I think you saw, especially with Julian Sayin, the ability to respond. Like the second play of the game, you throw a pick, and there's a part of you now, if you're an Ohio State fan, like, okay, here we go. We've seen this movie before. We have a talented dude at quarterback, whether it be C.J. Stroud or Will Howard or, heck, even Kyle McCord with what he ended up being over the course of his collegiate career. And in this spot, for whatever reason, you get tight, you get confused, start to press. Going into this game yesterday, since 2022, an Ohio State quarterback had thrown 2 interceptions in every game. Julian Sayin throws that first pick, and you're kind of like, okay, here we go again, and then plays, I don't want to say flawless the rest of the day, but I mean, pretty freaking close. 3 touchdowns from that point forward. Feels like he was on target with a lot of his throws in a just weird weather game. Probably tough to get a hold of the football. I was super impressed by the way he responded. I was impressed by the way the whole team responded. You go down 6 after that big pop play to start for Michigan where Jordan Marshall rips up a 35-yard run. There was, I think, a part of you, if you're an Ohio State fan in general, outside of the quarterback position. It was very easy to say, okay, is this about to happen again? We're down 6-0. Fox flashes up the graphic. Ohio State 6-point deficit, largest all season long. You're like, it's a pretty good way to live. But it would be in this game if you're an Ohio State fan. It would be this spot where you start to feel tight. And there was a moment where true freshman running back Bo Jackson got into it with one of the DBs from Michigan. Kind of jawing a little bit. And Bo Jackson sort of went right back at him, and they're going back and forth. And you're like, okay, that's rivalry football. Good to see the juices flowing. You expect that with Michigan, Ohio State. But then the very next play, Bo Jackson makes that sick juke move on the perimeter, shakes a Michigan DB, gets upfield, big chunk play, and goes right back at that same DB. Now, again, I'm not trying to take too much from a little, but it gave me a very similar vibe of what happened the first time Michigan beat Ohio State, where J.J. McCarthy has got to carry around, I believe it was like the left side, gets down to the pylon, and away from the play, you got Ohio State and Michigan, a DB for Ohio State, and I believe it was a Michigan skill player, mixing it up a little bit, and Michigan had like 3 or 4 different dudes run to their boys' back and get after the Ohio State DB that was being a little bit extra after the play. In that moment, I'm like, oh, Michigan's not scared of Ohio State. Oh, this feels different. Going back to what we saw yesterday, Bo Jackson sought out that same Michigan DB in real time, got after him, let him know he was there all day long. And I was like, oh, Ohio State, they're not carrying the weight of the last couple of years. Oh, they're not scared of Michigan. Now, was Ohio State ever scared of Michigan? Maybe that's the wrong word to use. I don't know. But again, a true freshman with the day that he had yesterday, making his presence felt and sticking his chest out after a big run on the road in that spot, that to me told me a lot about where the psyche was for this Ohio State team. And Bo Jackson, too, going back to this whole Navy SEAL kind of approach from Ohio State, they were calculated in that spot leading up from what happened in September all the way into this game and in this phase of the year for Ohio State, quite frankly, to be the more violent team. Because that's what it was. We said it before in the preview. The team that runs the football better wins this game. That's why Michigan had won the last 4. That's why Ohio State won yesterday. Bo Jackson goes for $117, 5 yards a carry. Hear this too, 22 carries for Bo Jackson. What did we say week long leading up to this game? Ohio State had not had a back, Bo Jackson specifically, with more than 20 carries. That's not a coincidence. That is, to use an NBA term here, load management. That's saving the legs of the offensive line as well as your running back room. That is a calculated effort to say, hey, we know the price of admission in this game. We're going to make sure physically our guys are in the best spot possible by how we take the weight off of them leading into this game to show up with bad intentions, deal out football headaches and nosebleeds. That's what we're here for, Ohio State. And to execute it that way, hats off to Ryan Day, hats off to Brian Hartline, hats off to the strength staff, because that was, I think, a chess game of sorts that came together at the perfect time when, as Ryan Day says, it's snowing sideways the Saturday after Thanksgiving, and that was the big deal in this spot to me as to why Ohio State found a way to get it done. Now, it's funny, all week long, too, we talked about Jeremiah Smith's got to be involved, and he was. Carnell Tate's got to have an impact. He did. Both caught touchdowns. Both had pop plays, but we said during the week, hey, if Jeremiah Smith has 35 yards receiving again, it's not going to be a good vibe for Ohio State. He didn't. He had 40, and it didn't really matter. It didn't really matter. Even Julian saying, we got a lot to clean up, but we have more we can accomplish. We got, more things we can get right on our side of the football here offensively. And sometimes players will say that, and you're like, yeah, but dude, you scored almost 30 points. Come on, I think you're just sort of humble bragging here. You're just sort of putting out some cliche blanket statements because you don't know what to say in a post-game interview. I don't think that was Julian saying in the spot. Like Jeremiah Smith having that stat line of 3 catches, 40 yards, and a touchdown. Not going to talk about the way that whole thing went at the end of the catch or the lack thereof. Play stands. We go as the officials go. But the idea that Jeremiah Smith can catch 3 passes and you can definitively beat your rival on the road, I think that says a lot about what Ohio State can still accomplish. I don't think Ryan Day and Julian saying we have more meat on the bone here was just lip service. Genuinely, I think that's the case. And so when you have the personality of this Ohio State team we've established, you have the violence they're playing with right now, you have the composure at quarterback, and you still have more you can do with the best players on your football team on the perimeter, that tells Ohio State's going to be a problem here going forward. With that defense showing up the way they showed up, to show up with bad intentions when you know what the deal is where you got to stop the run, and they did that at a really effective level. It confused Bryce Underwood all day long, held him to 63 yards passing. The defense level they're playing at, which is ridiculous. The way that what I just said, the personality of this team in general, the runway this offense has, Ohio State, we said it before, we predicted y'all in the midway point to win the national championship. What I saw yesterday only makes me feel better about that statement here that we had back in the month of October. It feels like it's trending that way very heavily for Ohio State. So the last thing I'll say here when it comes to the Buckeyes, we sat in this exact same spot, at this exact same desk, breaking down this exact same rivalry a year ago today. And what we said was Ohio State, more talented, but Michigan majors in the other stuff. Everything that doesn't have to do with talent. culture, poise, toughness, all that. Ohio State has shown very clearly, whether you want to call it a naive thing for the new pieces in this team in a positive way, or you want to say the Ohio State national title run kind of flipped the switch inside of Ryan Day. However you want to phrase it, whatever angle you want to take, Ohio State won the other stuff yesterday. That's why they won the football game. Now for Michigan, I think when you, obviously this hurts, okay? And it's a little bit of a tough assessment in some ways because it's impossible to not do the whole hindsight's 2020 thing with if Justice Haynes is healthy in this game, is it different? If Jordan Marshall is able to stay healthy like he looked in that first series the entirety of the game. I know he came back in the game, but we understand he wasn't really the same. Is it different? I don't know. But when you zoom out on this game and this season for Michigan, I think you got to feel a little bit like, hey, we're sort of in between places we're trying to live now. I think Michigan, the task for you here after this game is you got to really double down on who you want to be. Because I don't think Michigan lacks identity. I do think they lack being settled in that identity in a lot of ways. I feel like Michigan's trying to live in two different places. They're almost in between moving from the apartment to the house. The apartment is what they have been built on over the course of the last couple of years. It's a nice apartment. It's a high-rise in downtown Detroit, quite frankly. It's got a couple of national Joe Moore Awards in that thing, a national title trophy in that thing. But you want to be this downhill, gritty outfit. You want to run the football, but you also want to make sure that you maximize your elite quarterback talent in Bryce Underwood. You want to be able to push the football downfield. You want to make teams pay when they overcommit. And you want to do that, but your offensive line is young. You got a bunch of new pieces on the perimeter trying to sort out. One of your best players is a true freshman receiver in Andrew Marsh. Your other best receiver is Donovan McCulley, who's a transfer who just got there a year ago from Indiana. Was that Indiana a year ago is what I meant to say. There's so much that I feel like Michigan is still trying to move over to this new version of themselves they're trying to be offensively. Now, the defense I thought played about as well as you could outside of the way they were getting got in the running game. I thought they swung their sword. There's only so much you can do when the offense is having the lack of success they had over the course of this game. But I really do think that if you're Michigan, there's enough there to make some big moves this offseason in the transfer portal. I think you've proven now, as much as it felt underwhelming in real time for Bryce Underwood and the showing he had yesterday, if I'm Sharon Moore, if I'm Sean McGee, GM for Michigan, I'm going out there and saying, hey, listen, you see how talented this kid is? He was a true freshman last year, and we won 9 football games. You come here, bring this explosive element to the offense. Offensive lineman, you want to go get through the portal. If that's something they want to do, you come here and bring us back to what we were previously up front. We're going to win a lot of football games. Because, quite frankly now, for Michigan, the tricky part with them is, again, there's just so much youth. What was it, 6 starters they were playing that were freshmen yesterday? That's not an ideal formula when you're playing the best team in college football. Now, the rivalry is the rivalry, so there's a dose of weirdness you bake into this game and a dose of variance you bake into this game. But at the end of the day, if Michigan had found a way to get it done, that would have been, I think, almost as impressive as what they did last year, winning the game with 0 quarterback play. Bryce Underwood, his best days are ahead of him. Andrew Marsh, best days ahead of him. I think Justice Haynes' best days are ahead. You see where I'm going with this. Yesterday for Michigan was a product of their youth, and I think, quite frankly, Ohio State's work they've done over the course of this offseason. The momentum they had going from last year with a national title run ended up being the difference. So if I'm Michigan, I say, all right, this sucks, this hurts, let it hurt. Same time next year, similar stakes at your place. What do you say? Because Michigan's not going anywhere. I know there's this desire to be frustrated with Sharon Moore because they didn't win the game and all those things, but Michigan's not going anywhere. Make that very, very clear. So, Michigan fans, Ohio State fans, get in the comment section. One, make sure you subscribe, but get in the comment section. Let me know how are vibes after this one. Looking forward to hearing from y'all there. For Cato on the ones and twos, for myself, JD Piquel, we appreciate y'all. We love y'all. We're going to keep this party rolling, and we will see y'all next time.